Chief Harper lowered the phone slowly. Rain rolled off the edge of his jaw and darkened the collar of his coat. Nobody spoke. The dispatch radio hissed softly in the silence. I could hear my pager vibrating against the hood again. Short bursts. Rapid. Not routine. "What happened?" Harper asked into the phone. His voice sounded flatter now. More careful. The answer came fast and sharp through the speaker. "Massive abdominal bleed. Blood pressure keeps dropping. We cannot hold her." Harper closed his eyes for half a second. Just half. Then he looked at me again. Really looked this time. His gaze moved from the cuffs to the badge to the rain-soaked scrubs under my coat. Officer Coles shifted beside him. "Chief, we still need to verify his identity." I watched Harper's expression harden again, but differently now. Not anger. Calculation. Fear trying not to show itself. Across the street, an ambulance backed into the emergency bay with a long mechanical beep. Nurses rushed through the sliding doors under white floodlights. Somebody inside that building was already counting minutes. "What is your wife's name?" I asked. Harper stared at me. "Excuse me?" "Your wife," I said. "What is her name?" "Evelyn." My stomach tightened. Trauma Bay 2. 43 years old. Vehicle collision on Interstate 90. Internal bleeding. Possible splenic rupture. I had read the report 20 minutes earlier while driving in. "How long ago was the crash?" I asked. Harper's face changed again. He understood now. Not fully. But enough. 35 minutes, he said slowly. I nodded once. Then she does not have much time left. Cole scoffed beside him. "You cannot know that." "Actually," I said quietly, "I can." Another silence settled over the street. Rain tapped against the cruisers. A helicopter passed low overhead toward downtown. Grant looked away first. Harper stepped closer until we stood inches apart. Water dripped from the brim of his cap onto my sleeve. "If I uncuff you," he said, "and this turns out to be false, your wife dies while you finish the sentence." That landed harder than I intended. I saw it in his eyes immediately. Cole took a step forward. "Chief, do not let him talk." "Do you like that?" Harper ignored him. His phone rang again. He answered instantly this time. "What?" A woman's voice burst through the speaker. Panicked. We lost pressure again. "Dr. Chen says if Dr. Reed is not here in minutes." She stopped suddenly. I could hear machines beeping behind her. Fast. Uneven. Harper's hand trembled once around the phone. Barely noticeable. But I noticed. People always think surgeons only study anatomy. They forget we study fear too. It sits in the face before it reaches the voice. Cole still had not moved. "Chief, we should transport him first," he insisted. "Protocol." Harper turned slowly toward him. "Take the cuffs off." Cole blinked. "Sir?" "Now." Cole hesitated. That hesitation said more than words could. The metal around my wrists finally loosened. Blood rushed back into my hands in hot pins and needles. My skin carried deep red marks where the cuffs had bitten in. Grant handed me my soaked badge carefully this time. Not like evidence. Like something dangerous to mishandle. I grabbed it and started toward my car, but Harper caught my arm. "You save her," he said. His voice dropped lower. Rougher. "Please." That word did not belong to a police chief standing in the middle of flashing lights. But there it was anyway. I looked at him for one long second. Then I pulled free and reached for the driver's door. That was when the hospital called again. The hospital operator did not wait for me to speak. "Dr. Reed, where are you?" she asked breathlessly. I opened the car door fast enough that rain sprayed across the steering wheel. 2 blocks away. "Dr. Chen is opening already." That stopped me cold for half a second. Not because Chen lacked skill. He did not. But he was orthopedic trauma, not vascular. This was not his surgery. "How long has she been hypotensive?" I asked. Almost 10 minutes. I shut my eyes briefly. Too long. Way too long. Keep blood running. Massive transfusion protocol. I will be there in under 3. I ended the call and slid into the driver's seat. My soaked coat stuck cold against my back. Chief Harper stepped away from the door as I started the engine. The headlights cut through sheets of rain. For a second, nobody moved. Then Cole stepped toward my window again. Chief, we still have not cleared him. Harper snapped around so sharply even Grant flinched. Enough. Cole opened his mouth anyway. Sir, if this goes wrong, Internal Affairs is going to ask why we released the suspect during detainment. Harper walked right up to his officer until the rain hit both their faces sideways in the wind. If this goes wrong, Harper said quietly, my wife dies on an operating table. Cole finally fell silent. I pulled away hard from the curb. Tires hissed across wet asphalt. My hands still ached from the cuffs gripping my wrists minutes earlier. The red marks looked darker under the dashboard lights. I drove one-handed and called the oar directly. Nurse Valerie picked up instantly. Tell me everything, I said. Pressure is 80/50 and dropping, she answered. Ultrasound shows abdominal pooling. They think splenic artery. No chest trauma? Negative. Good. I turned hard through a yellow light. The hospital tower loomed larger ahead through the storm. Has anesthesia arrived? They are waiting on you. Tell them to prep rapid sequence induction now. No delays. Valerie hesitated. Marcus. Chin already scrubbed in. I gripped the wheel tighter. Do not let him clamp blind. Not yet. Silence. Then quietly. Understood. The call ended. My windshield wipers fought the rain in frantic rhythm. Left. Right. Left. Right. The city looked smeared and silver under the storm. A bus rolled past spraying dirty water against my doors. My pager buzzed again. Then again. Every vibration felt like lost time. I reached the employee parking gate and slammed my badge against the scanner through the open window. The gate stayed red. My stomach dropped. Come on! I scanned again. Nothing. Then I realized. Cole had bent the badge during the stop. The plastic corner was cracked straight through the access chip. The gate would not open. I hit the horn once, hard. A sleepy security guard inside the booth looked up from a television. He stared at me through the rain without moving. Open the gate! I shouted through the cracked window. He stepped outside slowly, jacket half-zipped. Dr. Reed? Now. His eyes drifted to the damaged badge in my hand. Then to the cruiser lights still flashing down the street behind me. Something in his face changed. Concern. Real concern. He hit the emergency override. The gate groaned upward inch by inch. Too slow. Always too slow. I shot through before it fully opened and braked hard near the ambulance entrance. Nurses were already waiting outside with a gurney rolling toward another incoming patient. The smell of antiseptic and rain hit me the second I jumped out. Valerie burst through the sliding doors the moment she saw me. You look terrible, she said breathlessly. How long was police holding you? Too long. We hurried down the hallway together under harsh fluorescent lights. Shoes squeaked against polished floors. Somewhere nearby, a monitor alarm began screaming continuously. Valerie looked at me once while we moved. Marcus, she whispered, there is something else you should know. Valerie kept pace beside me as we pushed through the trauma corridor. The fluorescent lights overhead buzzed faintly. Stretchers lined the walls. A child cried somewhere behind a curtain. The whole floor smelled like bleach, rainwater, and overheated coffee. What is it? I asked without slowing down. Valerie swallowed first. Chief Harper is already upstairs. I glanced at her sharply. Outside the OR? No. Inside the surgical viewing room. That tightened something in my chest immediately. Family members were never allowed there during emergency procedures. Not usually. Not unless administration bent rules they should not bend. We turned the corner toward the scrub station. My shoes squeaked hard against the tile. Who approved that? I asked. Valerie looked away for a second. Board pressure. Of course. Wealth moved differently inside hospitals. It opened doors without touching them. A nurse rushed past carrying fresh blood units packed in red coolers. O negative. More than one unit. Not good. Definitely not good. Vitals? I asked. Still unstable. Has she coded? Not yet. Yet. That word hung in the hallway like smoke. We reached the scrub sinks. I shoved my hands under the water instantly. Hot streams hit my skin. The cuff marks around my wrists burned under the soap. Valerie noticed them this time. She stared for half a second too long. Marcus, do not! I scrubbed harder. Pink water circled down the drain. We do not have time. She nodded quietly and handed me a sterile towel. The doors swung open nearby. Dr. Ethan Chin stepped out already wearing a surgical cap and mask around his neck. His forehead glistened under the bright lights. There you are, he said sharply. Her pressure keeps tanking. You opened? I asked. Not fully. Good. Chin exhaled through his nose. You think I cannot handle a splenic bleed? I think blind clamps kill people. That shut him up. Not because he disagreed. Because he knew I was right. A monitor alarm echoed from inside the operating room. Fast beeps. Then slower. Then fast again. The rhythm of a body losing ground. Chin rubbed the back of his neck once. You should know the chief is losing it in there. Then somebody should remove him. Chin gave a dry laugh without humor. Administration tried. Another nurse hurried toward us carrying fresh scans clipped to a board. She nearly slipped turning the corner. Latest imaging, she said breathlessly. I grabbed the films and held them against the light panel fast. Fluid spread across the abdomen in dark, cloudy pools. Worse than before. Much worse. Then I saw it. My eyes narrowed instantly. That is not the spleen. Chin stepped beside me. What? I pointed. Look closer. The room felt quieter around us. Even the monitor sounds behind the doors seemed farther away for a second. There, I said. Near the hepatic artery. Chin stared hard at the scan. His face slowly lost color. No, he whispered. That cannot be right. But it was. The bleed was higher. Deeper. Hidden behind swelling and pooled blood. If Chin had clamped low first, Evelyn Harper would have lost liver perfusion within minutes. Fatal in surgery. Fatal because the wrong assumption got made too early. Valerie covered her mouth softly. Chin looked at me again differently now. Not defensive anymore. Uneasy. You saw this from the report? He asked quietly. The mechanism of impact did not match the original scan. I handed the films back to him. Seatbelt bruising usually lies. Chin stared through the viewing glass into the ore. I almost missed it. But you did not. I said. Not yet. The viewing room door suddenly opened above us. Chief Harper stepped out wearing blue surgical coveralls over his soaked uniform pants. His eyes looked hollow under the fluorescent lights. He saw me instantly. Relief hit his face first. Then shame came right after it. Quiet. Heavy. He started toward me slowly. Dr. Reed. Before he could finish, another alarm exploded from inside the operating room. The alarm tore through the hallway in one long mechanical scream. Every nurse near the door moved faster instantly. Somebody inside shouted for pressure support. Another voice called for more blood. Chief Harper turned toward the doors like his body wanted to run through them. I stepped past him first. Marcus, Chin said behind me. Her pressure is crashing. I know. The scrub nurse pushed the doors open wide enough for me to enter. Heat hit my face immediately. Bright surgical lights flooded the room in harsh white glare. Machines beeped from every direction. Evelyn Harper lay motionless beneath blue sterile drapes while the anesthesia ventilator pushed measured breaths into her lungs. The monitor above her flashed numbers dropping too fast. 48/32. Then lower. I moved to the table without speaking. Everyone in the room shifted slightly the moment I arrived. Tiny changes. Tiny pauses. That always happened during real emergencies. People looked for the calmest person in the room and unconsciously moved toward them. Status, I said, pulling on gloves. Expanding abdominal bleed. Chen answered. We were preparing to open fully. Urine output? Minimal. Blood loss? Too much. I looked up at the monitor once. Heart rate climbing. Pressure collapsing. Skin already losing warmth. We were running out of room to recover her. Scalpel, I said. The instrument hit my palm instantly. Everything narrowed after that. Noise faded first. Then fear. Then time itself. There was only rhythm. Movement. Pressure. Light. I opened carefully while Chun suctioned beside me. Blood pooled dark beneath the surgical lamps. The smell of cautery mixed with antiseptic and warm plastic tubing. Somebody adjusted the overhead light. Another nurse called out new vitals. None of it mattered yet. I followed the bleed instead. Deep. Hidden exactly where the scan suggested. There, I said quietly. Shin saw it too this time. His breath caught under the mask. The hepatic artery branch had torn badly behind swelling tissue. Hard to visualize. Easy to miss. Fatal if ignored. Clamp, I said. The room moved faster. Metal instruments clicked into my hand one after another. The monitor suddenly dropped again in sharp warning tones. Pressure is falling. Anesthesia called out. I know. My gloves were slick now. Not from panic. From urgency. There is a difference. I worked deeper carefully, fingers steady despite the ache still lingering in my wrists from the cuffs. For one strange second, I remembered the sound they made closing around my hands outside in the rain. Cold metal. Assumption. Delay. Then the thought disappeared again. No room for anger here. Chen leaned closer beside me. Can you reach it? Almost. Pressure at 40. The room tightened instantly. Nurses exchanged quick looks. Somebody whispered for another unit of blood. The monitor beeped slower now. Too slow. I adjusted position once. Then twice. Finally my fingers closed around the damaged vessel. Got it. Relief passed through the room so quietly most people would not notice it. But I did. It sounded like breath returning. Clamp. Chen handed it over immediately. Metal locked into place. The bleeding slowed. Then slowed more. The monitor numbers hesitated. Wavered. Climbed by 2 points. Tiny movement. But enough. Pressure stabilizing. Anesthesia said carefully. Nobody celebrated. Not yet. We were not safe. Not even close. I continued repairing the artery while sweat gathered under my surgical cap. Across the glass viewing room above us, I could see Chief Harper standing completely still behind the window. His hand rested against the glass like he wanted to reach through it. He watched every movement I made. Every second his wife stayed alive depended on. Those movements now. The same hands his officers pinned against a police cruiser less than an hour ago. Chen noticed him too. His eyes shifted upward briefly before returning to the field. He knows, Chen murmured softly. Good, I answered. Another long minute passed. Then 2. The monitor steadied further. Better pressure. Better rhythm. Not safe yet. But fighting now instead of fading. A nurse suddenly entered from the side door carrying a tablet in both shaking hands. Dr. Reed, she whispered urgently. You need to see this. The nurse held the tablet close to her chest like it might break. Her eyes moved nervously between me and the viewing room above. What is it? I asked without looking away from the surgical field. Administration forwarded this from hospital security. My hands stayed steady on the repair. Say it. She swallowed once. Someone recorded the arrest outside. The room shifted slightly around me. Tiny movements again. Tiny silences. Chin glanced toward the tablet but kept suction steady. Why are you showing me this now? I asked. Because it is already online. That landed harder than the alarm earlier. Not because of pride. Because hospitals hated visibility during active emergencies. Especially this kind. I tied the final stitch carefully. The vessel held. No fresh bleeding pushed through. Pressure? I asked. 90/60 and climbing. Anesthesia answered. Better. Finally better. Not safe yet. But breathing room. The nurse stepped closer and lowered the brightness on the tablet instinctively, like the light itself felt dangerous. I caught a glimpse anyway. Rain. Flashing police lights. My face against the cruiser. Officer Cole forcing my wrists higher while my pager screamed loud enough for the phone microphone to capture it. Somebody nearby in the video kept saying the same sentence over and over. He said he is a doctor. He said somebody is dying. Chin exhaled slowly through his mask. How many views? The nurse looked down. Almost 2 million already. Nobody spoke for a second after that. The ventilator hissed softly in the silence. Machines beeped steady now instead of frantic. A different rhythm. But tension still. Sat thick inside the room. Who posted it? Chen asked quietly. Local traffic account first. Then national pages picked it up. She hesitated again. Comments are identifying everyone. I already knew what that meant. Names. Departments. Screenshots. Anger spreading faster than facts. Hospitals moved fast during trauma. The internet moved faster during humiliation. Above us, Chief Harper stepped away from the viewing glass suddenly. His figure disappeared from sight. Focus, I said quietly. The nurse lowered the tablet immediately. She looked embarrassed now. Like she regretted bringing it inside. Sorry, Dr. Reed. Not your fault. I checked the repair one more time carefully. No leak. Good perfusion. Color improving slowly. Evelyn Harper's body was fighting again instead of surrendering. That mattered more than any video outside these walls. At least for now. Chin finally broke the silence. Cole is finished after this. I kept my eyes on the surgical field. Maybe. Maybe? He sounded almost offended. The entire country just watched him cuff a trauma surgeon during an active emergency call. People are not their worst 5 minutes forever, I said. Chin stared at me. You are serious. Very. The scrub nurse handed me another instrument. Metal clicked softly into my palm. You really are not angry? She asked before she could stop herself. I paused for the first time since entering the room. The question hung there between the monitor sounds and fluorescent light hum. Anger is easy, I said finally. Keeping someone alive is harder. Nobody answered after that. Even Chin looked away. Another few minutes passed. Slow. Careful. Precise. We controlled the remaining bleeding and began stabilizing tissue damage around the artery. My shoulders ached now. Adrenaline was fading enough for exhaustion to creep in underneath. I had been awake nearly 20 hours already before the police stop ever happened. A circulating nurse adjusted the overhead light. Temperature rising. Anesthesia reported. Pressure stable. Better again. Across the room, the side television mounted near the chart station suddenly switched channels automatically. Breaking news banners flashed bright red across the screen. The volume stayed low, but not low enough. My own face appeared under the words live developing story. Rainwater streamed down my coat in the footage while officers forced me against the hood. Then the screen split beside another image. Chief Harper standing outside the hospital 30 minutes earlier beside reporters. Chin looked up first. Wait, he murmured. The nurse near the television grabbed the remote too late. Harper's voice filled the operating room speakers before she could mute it. Tonight, my officers failed someone who was trying to save a life. Chief Harper's voice echoed across the operating room from the television speakers. Every movement inside the OR slowed for half a second. Even the nurses looked up instinctively. Harper stood behind a cluster of microphones outside the emergency entrance in the footage. Rain still soaked the shoulders of his coat. Flashing lights painted red streaks across the pavement behind him. The reporter beside him looked stunned he had stopped to speak at all. Dr. Marcus Reed should never have been delayed, Harper continued. His voice sounded rougher than before. Less controlled. And whatever responsibility follows tonight belongs to my department first. The room stayed silent except for the monitor beeping steadily beside Evelyn Harper's bed. Nobody expected that statement. Not this fast. Not publicly. Chin glanced toward me carefully. That is career suicide, he murmured. I kept working. Maybe. On the television, reporters shouted questions over one another. Chief Harper, are the officers suspended? Was race a factor? Did the delay endanger your wife? Harper looked exhausted under the floodlights. Like the last hour had carved 10 years into his face. An internal review begins immediately, he answered. But right now, my wife is still in surgery. His eyes shifted briefly toward the hospital windows above him. Toward us. Toward the room where his entire world hung by threads and sutures and blood pressure readings. The nurse finally muted the television. The silence afterward felt heavier than the broadcast itself. I adjusted another clamp carefully. Sponge. The scrub nurse handed it over immediately. My gloves were stained dark now. Sweat gathered beneath my mask. The OR lights felt hotter by the minute. Pressure holding at 98, anesthesia said. Better. Much better. Chin exhaled quietly beside me. You saved her. Not yet. Those words mattered. Surgeons who celebrated too early usually regretted it later. We still had swelling to monitor. Tissue damage. Risk of secondary bleeding. The body always decided the final outcome long after people wanted certainty. Valerie entered the OR quietly through the side door carrying fresh lab results. Her face looked tense again. Marcus, she whispered. You need a break for 30 seconds. No, now. Something in her voice changed my mind. I stepped back from the table reluctantly while Chin maintained position. Valerie guided me toward the scrub counter near the back wall. Away from the others. What happened? I asked. She handed me her phone silently. Social media feeds rolled upward too fast to read completely. News stations. Interview clips. Hospital footage. The arrest video everywhere. But one image froze me instantly. Officer Cole standing outside the precinct less than 20 minutes earlier while reporters screamed questions at him. His face looked pale under the camera lights. Cornered. Then another clip loaded automatically. A woman crying into a microphone. That officer stopped my son 3 times last year for no reason, she said. Another voice followed. He pulled a gun on my husband during a traffic stop. More clips. More stories. More faces. Valerie lowered the phone slowly. People are coming forward. I stared at the screen a second longer. Rain tapped softly against the OR windows far down the corridor outside. Internal Affairs already arrived downstairs, Valerie added quietly. So did City Media. And Cole? Valerie hesitated. Nobody can find him. That tightened the room around me more than it should have. What do you mean? He left after the chief ordered the cuffs removed. Chin looked over from the table. He ran? Maybe. Valerie rubbed her arms once beneath her gown. But security said somebody accessed the employee. Parking garage cameras 10 minutes ago using a police override code. A cold feeling slid through my chest slowly. Not fear exactly. Recognition. The kind that comes when events stop looking accidental and start connecting into patterns. Marcus, Valerie said softly. Someone deleted part of the hospital surveillance footage from tonight. Behind us, the heart monitor suddenly skipped once. The skipped heartbeat lasted less than a second. But every person in the operating room felt it. The monitor dipped sharply. One flat tone cut through the air before the rhythm returned again. Pressure dropping. Anesthesia warned immediately. I handed Valerie back the phone and moved to the table fast. Talk later, I said. Clamp pressure. Chin shifted position beside me instantly. The room tightened again around the sound of the monitor. A minute ago people were thinking about videos and reporters and missing officers. Now none of that mattered. Not inside this room. Evelyn Harper's skin looked paler under the surgical lights. Tiny beads of sweat gathered near her hairline despite the cold air. I leaned closer to the repair site. Suction. Blood clouded part of the field again. Not massive, but enough to matter. There, Chin said quietly. I saw it immediately. A secondary tear had opened deeper along the damaged vessel wall. Small. Hidden. Dangerous. How did we miss that? The scrub nurse whispered. Because the body swells after trauma. I answered. Things reveal themselves late. The monitor skipped again. Pressure 82/40. I adjusted my grip carefully. The room smelled sharply of cautery smoke now. Dry heat mixed with antiseptic and exhaustion. Somewhere behind me, a printer spat out fresh lab results in quick mechanical bursts. More blood, I said. Already running. Anesthesia answered. I repaired the second tear slowly. No wasted movement. No extra force. Hands steady. Breathe steady. Chin watched my fingers closely now. Not studying anymore. Learning. There is a difference between reading surgery and surviving one. The doors suddenly opened behind us. Chief Harper stepped inside before anyone could stop him. Sir, you cannot be in here, eh? Nurse snapped immediately. But Harper barely heard her. His eyes locked on the monitor first. Then on his wife. Then finally on me. He looked wrecked now. Not powerful. Not commanding. Just terrified. Rain still darkened the shoulders of his coveralls from earlier. Is she dying? He asked. Nobody answered immediately. Machines filled the silence instead. Beep. Hiss. Click. Beep. I kept working while speaking. She is still fighting. Harper stepped closer than he should have. Tell me the truth. The truth is you almost lost her twice tonight. That landed hard enough to stop him cold. Chin glanced at me sharply but said nothing. Harper swallowed once. His throat moved visibly above the surgical mask hanging loose around his neck. Dr. Reed. His voice cracked slightly. I am sorry. The words sounded strange inside an operating room. Heavy. Human. Real. I tied another stitch carefully before answering. This is not the place for apologies. Harper looked down at the floor briefly. Then his eyes shifted to my wrists. The cuff marks were still visible beneath the edge of my gloves. Red against dark skin. His face tightened instantly. Shame looks different on everyone. On him it looked quiet. Chief, Valerie said softly from behind him. You need to leave the sterile zone. He nodded once but did not move right away. My officers should have listened to you. Your officers saw what they expected to see, I answered. Harper closed his eyes for 1 second. Just one. Like the sentence hit somewhere deeper than anger. Then the overhead speaker crackled alive across the ceiling. Security alert. Level 2 lockdown initiated in parking structure C. Everyone looked up instinctively. What now? Chin muttered under his breath. Valerie moved toward the wall phone immediately. This is OR 3. What happened? Static answered first. Then a frightened voice. Police are searching the garage. For who? Valerie asked. Another pause. Officer Cole's patrol vehicle was found abandoned there. The room fell completely still around that sentence. Even Harper looked confused now. Abandoned? He repeated quietly. The voice over the speaker lowered further. There was blood inside the cruiser. No one in the operating room moved after that sentence. The monitor continued its steady rhythm beside Evelyn Harper's bed, but the atmosphere changed instantly. Tighter. Colder. Chief Harper stared at the ceiling speaker like he had misheard it. "What kind of blood?" he asked sharply. Static crackled again before the dispatcher answered. "Unknown at this time, sir." Harper stepped toward the wall phone. "Was Cole injured?" "We do not know yet." The line cut off abruptly. Silence rushed back into the room. Chin looked toward me carefully. "This night keeps getting worse." I kept my focus on the repair site. "Stay on suction." My voice sounded calmer than I felt. Not because of the abandoned cruiser. Because patterns were forming now. Missing footage. A damaged access badge. A vanished officer. Blood inside an empty patrol vehicle. None of it fit together cleanly. "Not yet." Valerie moved beside Harper quietly. "Chief, security wants you downstairs." Harper did not answer immediately. His eyes stayed fixed on his wife beneath the surgical lights. Her pressure had stabilized again, but she still looked fragile. Pale. Motionless. Suspended somewhere between danger and survival. "I am not leaving her," he said finally. "Sir," Valerie pressed gently, "they may need authorization." Harper rubbed both hands down his face slowly. Exhaustion clung to him now like another layer of clothing. 5 minutes, he muttered. "Then I go." I adjusted another stitch carefully. "Go now." Harper looked at me. "What?" "If there is blood in that cruiser, your department already lost control of this situation." The sentence landed hard. Not dramatic. Just true. Harper understood immediately. I saw it in his posture. The shift happened quietly. A man realizing events had grown larger than his authority. Chin checked the monitor again. Pressure stable at 94. Better. Slowly better. A nurse replaced another bag while the ventilator continued its steady mechanical breaths. In emergencies, survival often sounded boring from the outside. Just machines repeating the same sounds over and over while people fought exhaustion under fluorescent lights. Harper stepped closer to the table one last time. "Will she make it?" he asked. I looked directly at him for the first time since entering the OR. "If nothing else goes wrong." His jaw tightened at those words. Because deep down, he knew things already had. He turned and left through the side doors without another sentence. The room breathed easier once he disappeared. Not because anyone disliked him. Because fear changes the air around powerful people. Especially when they are desperate. Valerie glanced toward the closed doors. "He looks destroyed." "Good," Chin muttered quietly. I looked at him sharply. He noticed immediately. "What?" "Do not confuse guilt with understanding," I said. Chin fell silent after that. Another few minutes passed. Slow progress. Careful movements. The bleeding remained controlled. Tissue color improved gradually around the repair. Anesthesia finally lowered the medication support slightly. Small victory. Tiny one. But real. Then the scrub nurse froze mid-count beside the instrument table. "Dr. Reed," she whispered. "Your wrist." I glanced down. A thin line of blood had seeped through the edge of my glove near the cuff marks. The metal restraints earlier had cut deeper than I realized. Hours of scrubbing and pressure finally reopened one side. Valerie stepped closer instantly. "You need another pair." "Later." "No," she insisted. "If that contaminates the field." She was right. I stepped back reluctantly while a nurse peeled away the outer gloves. The skin underneath looked angry and swollen where the cuffs had pressed down. Deep red marks crossed both wrists unevenly. Chin saw them fully for the first time. His expression shifted slightly. "They did that during a medical emergency?" I flexed my hand once before pulling on fresh gloves. "Focus on the patient." The overhead speaker crackled alive again before anyone could answer. "Attention all departments. Media has breached the east lobby entrance." Valerie closed her eyes briefly. "Wonderful." Then another voice cut in underneath the announcement. breathless. Panicked. Security to OR3 immediately. Someone just accessed Dr. Reed's locker. Valerie grabbed the wall phone first. This is OR3, she said sharply. Who accessed the locker? The voice on the other end sounded breathless. We do not know yet. Security found the locker room door forced open. Chen looked up immediately. Forced? I kept working. What was taken? Valerie listened another second. Her face tightened. Dr. Reed's personal bag is missing. The room went quiet again. Too quiet. The monitor continued its steady rhythm beside Evelyn Harper, but everyone else froze for a moment around the sentence. My bag. My phone. My keys. My backup ID. Everything inside. Wonderful timing, Chen muttered softly. Valerie lowered the phone. Security says someone disabled the hallway camera before entering. I tied another stitch carefully. Same missing footage pattern. Valerie nodded slowly. Looks like it. Sweat rolled down the side of my face beneath the surgical cap. The ore felt hotter by the minute now. Or maybe exhaustion was finally catching up to me. What was in the bag? Chen asked. Nothing useful. But even as I said it, something clicked into place. Fast. Sharp. My pager. Valerie looked at me instantly. What? The secondary pager. I stared at the surgical field while thinking through it. The one linked directly to trauma routing. Chen stopped moving for half a second. Someone could reroute emergency calls with that access. Or impersonate a trauma response. The silence after that felt dangerous. Not emotional. Operational. The kind of silence people fall into when they realize this is no longer one bad traffic stop. Someone was moving pieces now. Deliberately. Valerie looked toward the ore doors nervously. You think this is connected to coal? I think coincidence stopped existing about 30 minutes ago. The overhead lights reflected sharply against the stainless steel instruments beside us. Tiny points of white across metal. Clean. Cold. Controlled. Unlike the rest of the night. A nurse entered quietly carrying fresh blood work. Hemoglobin stabilizing, she reported. Good. Finally some good news. Evelyn Harper's pressure held steady near 100 now. Skin color improving slightly. Body temperature climbing back slowly. We were pulling her out inch by inch. Closing in 10 minutes if nothing changes, I said. Chen nodded immediately. He trusted the room again now. Trusted me. That matters during surgery more than people realize. One uncertain movement from a team leader spreads panic faster than alarms ever do. Valerie's phone suddenly vibrated in her pocket. She checked the screen and frowned. It is Harper. Answer it. She picked up immediately. Chief? Even from across the room, I could hear shouting behind him. Reporters. Police radios. Echoing footsteps. Valerie, Harper said tightly. Is Marcus still operating? Yes. Keep him there. I looked up sharply at that. Valerie did too. What happened? She asked. Harper lowered his voice. Somebody used Dr. Reed's stolen ID badge at the ambulance entrance 6 minutes ago. Chen stared at me. Impossible. His badge broke. The backup badge, I said quietly. Harper continued through the phone. Security stopped a man wearing surgical scrubs near Trauma Bay 4. He ran before they could identify him. My stomach tightened slowly. Did anyone see his face? Valerie asked. No. But he used Reed's credentials to bypass security doors. The ventilator hissed steadily beside us. In. Out. In. Out. Mechanical calm against growing chaos. Chief, Valerie asked carefully. Where are you? Another burst of shouting crackled through the speaker before Harper answered. Parking structure C. His voice sounded different now. Hard again. Focused. They found Cole. Nobody moved after that. Even the monitor sounds seemed quieter suddenly. Is he alive? Valerie whispered. A long pause answered first. Rain hammered faintly somewhere through the distant hospital walls. Then Harper finally spoke again. Barely. Valerie lowered the phone slowly after the call ended. Nobody asked questions right away. The operating room had already reached that strange point where every new detail felt heavier than the last one. I focused on closing the final layer carefully while the monitor kept its steady rhythm beside Evelyn Harper's bed. Stable. Still stable. That mattered most. What happened to him? Chen finally asked. Valerie shook her head once. Harper did not say. The ventilator pushed another measured breath into Evelyn's lungs. Warm air hissed softly through the tubing. In. Out. In. Out. Predictable. Reliable. Unlike the rest of the night. I tied another stitch and stepped back slightly. Check perfusion again. Chen leaned in immediately. His gloves moved with more confidence now. Not rushed anymore. Flow looks good, he said quietly. No active bleed. Relief moved through the room in small, invisible ways. A nurse loosened her shoulders. Someone exhaled slowly behind a mask. Tiny human reactions after surviving sustained pressure. Valerie looked toward me again. Marcus, security wants to know if there was anything unusual inside your locker. I thought for a second while peeling off my outer gloves. Only paperwork. A spare pager. Clothes. Then something surfaced in my memory. Sharp enough to stop me. And a flash drive. Chen looked up. What kind of flash drive? Patient transfer records. Valerie frowned immediately. Why would someone want those? I stared at the stainless steel sink across the room. Water dripped steadily from the faucet somebody forgot to close fully. Tap. 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 Because one of those transfers happened tonight. Silence settled instantly after that. Valerie stepped closer. You think Evelyn Harper was not the target? I think somebody knew exactly where she was being taken. The sentence chilled the room more than any alarm had. Chen lowered his eyes briefly. The ambulance reroute. I nodded once. Her original destination was County General. Not here. Valerie's face lost color. Then whoever accessed your credentials could have been trying to alter trauma routing after the crash. Or erase evidence afterward. Nobody spoke for several seconds. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Outside the hors d'oeuvres, distant footsteps echoed through the hallway faster than before. The entire hospital felt restless now. Like a building sensing pressure somewhere deep in its foundation. A nurse near the chart station suddenly looked toward the television again. Dr. Reed, she whispered. The screen was muted this time, but closed captions rolled beneath live helicopter footage above. Parking structure C. Police lights flashed across concrete ramps below. Stretchers moved quickly through the rain. Reporters crowded behind barricades. Then the camera zoomed tighter toward a damaged patrol cruiser surrounded by officers. Even without sound, tension poured through the screen. Valerie read the captions under her breath. Officer involved incident under investigation. Her voice faded. Then another caption appeared. Possible connection to hospital security breach. Chen stared at the screen. This is going national. Already has. Valerie answered softly. I pulled off my gloves fully now. My hands trembled once from exhaustion the second the adrenaline dipped low enough to notice it. Deep cuff marks still crossed both wrists, dark red beneath the oar lights. One of the nurses looked at them silently before looking away again. Shame travels quietly through rooms too. The overhead speaker crackled suddenly. Dr. Reed to surgical recovery consultation immediately. Valerie frowned. Recovery? Why? Before anyone answered, the side hors d'oeuvres burst open hard enough to hit the wall behind them. Chief Harper stepped inside, breathing heavily from the run upstairs. Rainwater still clung to his boots. His face looked different now. Pale. Focused. And underneath all of it, shaken. Marcus, he said urgently. Cole woke up. Chief Harper stopped just inside the operating room doors, trying to catch his breath. Water dripped from the edge of his jacket onto the tile floor. The entire hospital seemed louder now. Phones ringing somewhere downstairs. Footsteps running through corridors. Helicopter blades thudding faintly overhead through the storm. "What did he say?" Valerie asked immediately. Harper looked straight at me. "He asked for you?" Nobody answered for a second. Chen slowly removed his gloves. "That does not sound good." Harper nodded once. "Cole keeps repeating the same thing." He swallowed hard before continuing. "He said Dr. Reed was never supposed to make it into this hospital tonight." The words settled into the room like cold smoke. Even the monitor beside Evelyn Harper seemed louder afterward. Beep. 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 Steady. Alive. I stared at Harper carefully. "Who gave the order?" "He will not say." Harper rubbed a trembling hand across his face. "Every time detectives ask, he shuts down again." Valerie crossed her arms tightly. "Then why ask for Marcus?" Harper looked exhausted now. More than exhausted. Worn through. "Because apparently Cole thinks Marcus is the only one who will believe him." Chin gave a dry laugh without humor. "After tonight? People do strange things when fear finally catches them," I said quietly. Harper looked at me sharply after that sentence. Like he heard something deeper inside it. Maybe he did. I stepped back from the operating table fully now while the nurses began preparing Evelyn Harper for recovery transfer. Her color looked stronger under the softer post-op lighting. The difference was small, but real. "She is stable enough for ICU," I said. Relief flashed across Harper's face so quickly it almost hurt to watch. He looked toward his wife through the glassy exhaustion in his eyes. "Thank you," he whispered. The words sounded fragile now. Not official. Not powerful. Just human. I removed my surgical mask slowly. Cool air hit my face for the first time in hours. My body suddenly felt heavy without the operation holding it upright. Fatigue crashed in all at once. My wrist still burned beneath the dried marks left by the cuffs earlier. Harper noticed again. This time he did not look away. "Marcus," he struggled for the right sentence. "There is no excuse for what happened." I leaned against the scrub counter briefly. Stainless steel felt cold through my gown. "No," I answered quietly. "There is not." Silence stretched between us. Not hostile. Just honest. Valerie broke it first. "If Cole is telling the truth, then somebody wanted Marcus delayed before surgery." Chin looked toward me. "Which means this started before the traffic stop." Harper nodded grimly. "Detectives found evidence somebody accessed emergency dispatch records earlier tonight." My stomach tightened slightly. "Looking for what?" "Your route to the hospital." The room fell still again. I could hear rain tapping faintly against distant windows somewhere down the hall. Tiny sounds suddenly felt enormous. "After a night like this." "Somebody set him up," Valerie whispered. Harper looked at me carefully now. "Marcus, did you recognize anyone at the stop?" I thought back through the rain. The flashing lights. Cole's hands forcing my wrists onto the hood. Grant standing beside the cruiser. Passing headlights. Phones recording from behind wet glass. Then one detail surfaced slowly. Small. Strange. Easy to miss at the time. "There was another car," I said quietly. Harper frowned. "What kind?" "Dark sedan. Parked across the street during the stop." Chen looked up immediately. "Watching?" "Maybe." I closed my eyes briefly, forcing the memory clearer. "The driver never got out." Harper stepped closer. "Did you see the plate?" "No." I opened my eyes again. "But I remember the sticker on the windshield." Valerie tilted her head slightly. "What sticker?" I looked directly at Harper. "County General Hospital parking access." Nobody in the operating room spoke after that. County General. The original destination. The same hospital that would have received Evelyn Harper before the reroute. Rain pressed softly against the high windows while distant sirens echoed somewhere below the building. Chief Harper stared at me carefully. You are sure? Yes. My voice came out tired now. Heavy from hours without rest. Blue parking decal. Lower left windshield. Harper nodded slowly, already thinking ahead. I could see it happening behind his eyes. Connections. Timelines. Mistakes. County General had a trauma surgeon suspended last month, Valerie said quietly. Chen looked toward her. For what? Patient transfer fraud investigation. Harper's face hardened instantly. Name? Valerie swallowed. Dr. Alan Pierce. The room shifted again around that name. Not because everyone knew him personally. Because everyone in emergency medicine knew the type. Brilliant. Competitive. Respected until corners started getting cut. I remembered Pierce immediately. Sharp suits. Expensive watches. A smile that never reached his eyes. Pierce lost several major trauma contracts after St. Anne's expanded, Chen murmured. Harper looked back at me. And tonight your wife was rerouted here instead of County. The sentence settled heavily between us. Valerie folded her arms tighter. If somebody wanted the reroute reversed, delaying Marcus changes everything. Chen finished quietly. Nobody needed to say the rest aloud. A few more lost minutes tonight, and Evelyn Harper never survives long enough for questions. The monitor beside her bed continued its steady rhythm. Soft. Consistent. Alive. Harper moved slowly toward the recovery bed where his wife now rested under warm blankets and dimmer lights. He stood there for several seconds without speaking. Just watching her breathe. Then he turned back toward me. You still saved her. I leaned against the counter briefly. Exhaustion pressed into my bones now that the surgery was over. Barely. Harper shook his head once. No. You did it after everything. His eyes dropped toward my wrists again. The red cuff marks looked darker under the softer recovery lights. Nobody in the room looked comfortable seeing them anymore. Not even Chin. Harper stepped closer slowly. Marcus, when this investigation finishes, I will make sure the truth comes out. I studied him for a long second. Rainwater still clung to the edges of his boots from outside. His uniform looked wrinkled now. Smaller somehow. Less like armor. The truth was already out there, I said quietly. People just ignored it until tonight. Harper lowered his eyes after that. No defense. No argument. Just silence. Valerie walked toward the recovery monitors and checked the readings one more time. She is stabilizing beautifully, she whispered. It was the first hopeful sentence anyone had spoken all night without fear attached to it. Chen finally removed his cap and ran a hand through damp hair. You should sit down before you collapse. He was probably right. My hands trembled slightly now that adrenaline had nowhere left to go. Somewhere downstairs, reporters were still shouting questions into cameras. Detectives were chasing missing footage. Internal Affairs was pulling records. But up here, inside the recovery room, everything had gone strangely quiet. The kind of quiet that only comes after surviving something terrible. Harper moved beside his wife's bed and gently took her hand. He looked older than he had 3 hours ago. I judged you before I ever listened, he said softly. I looked at the sleeping woman on the bed. Then at the man standing beside her. Tonight almost cost both of us something, I answered. Harper nodded once. Slow. Honest. Outside the recovery room windows, dawn finally began bleeding gray light into the rain.